Most people are about to lose everything in the next 12 months, and they have no idea it's coming. While they're busy watching the news and panic selling their future for pennies on the dollar, a small group of people, the architects, are getting ready for the biggest wealth transfer in history. See, a recession isn't a tragedy if you have the map. It's a clearance sale. The 1% don't fear a market crash. They pray for it. Because they know that when the world goes broke, assets don't disappear. They just change hands. If you're tired of being a passenger on a plane that's hitting turbulence, it's time to stop screaming and start looking for the controls. Today, I'm going to show you how to build a financial shield that makes you untouchable while everyone else is drowning. The storm is coming. The question is, are you going to be a victim or the architect of your own freedom? Let's get to work. Most people treat the economy like the weather. They wait for the sun to come out so they can feel good, and they hide under the covers the second they hear thunder. But if you're following the real wealth map, you realize that the weather doesn't dictate your journey. Your preparation does. Right now, the air is thick with fear. You see it in the headlines, you hear it in the whispers at the office, and you see it every time you check your portfolio and see that sea of red. The world feels like it's going broke. People are panicking because they've been living in a bull market fantasy for too long. They thought the rocket would just keep going up forever without any fuel or maintenance. But a recession isn't a disaster for everyone. For the prepared, it is a filter. It is the moment where the lucky are separated from the systematic. It is the moment where wealth is transferred from the hands of the fearful into the hands of the architects. Today we aren't just talking about surviving. We are talking about becoming untouchable. We are going to break down the financial shield, the truth about systemic diversification, and the only asset that actually gains value when the rest of the world is burning. If you want to be the person who stays wealthy while everyone else is scrambling for a life jacket, you need to listen very closely. Let's get to work. Before we talk about the numbers, we have to talk about your brain. Human beings are biologically programmed to be terrible investors. We have an evolutionary trait called loss aversion. Evolutionarily, losing a meal was a death sentence, so our brains react to a 20% drop in the stock market the same way our ancestors reacted to a predator in the bushes. When the charts turn red, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles logic and the real wealth map, shuts down. Your amygdala takes over. It screams, run. This is why most people sell at the absolute bottom. They wait until the pain is unbearable, they sell their assets for a fraction of what they're worth, and then they sit on the sidelines while the market eventually recovers. They treated their money like a trophy to be protected, rather than a tool to be used. If you view money as the finish line, you will always be afraid of losing it. But if you view money as fuel for the journey, you realize that a recession is just a period where the fuel is cheaper to buy. To be recession-proof, you must first become panic-proof. You have to realize that the red on the screen isn't a fire, it's a clearance sale. But you can only have that perspective if you have the next piece of the map, the shield. The most dangerous position to be in during a recession is being a forced seller. This happens when you have all your money tied up in passive assets, but you have no liquid cash to pay for your actual life. When the car breaks down or the rent is due and the market is down 30%, you are forced to sell your assets at a loss just to survive. This is why the first block of our safety strategy is the financial shield. What it is, a cash reserve of 3 to 6 months of your total living expenses. What it isn't, this is not money for investing. This is not money for buying the dip. This is boring money. The purpose, the shield exists to buy you the luxury of patience. When you have a shield, you don't care what the market does today. You don't care if your crypto portfolio drops or if your house value dips. Why? Because you aren't a hostage to the market's timing. You have enough fuel in your reserve tank to wait out the storm. Most people skip this step because they want to see their money working. But in a recession, the most productive thing your money can do is sit still and keep you calm. The shield is your financial parachute. It's better to have it and not need it than to be plummeting toward the ground realizing you never bothered to pack it. Now, let's talk about the biggest lie in diversification. Most people think they are diversified because they own 10 different stocks. But if those 10 stocks are all in the same sector or all in the same country, they are all connected to the same engine. If that engine fails, all your baskets break at once. True diversification on the real wealth map isn't about the number of things you own. It's about the types of systems you are invested in. You need to be diversified across 3 specific pillars. 1. Equity. These are your money machines. Stocks and businesses that produce value through the labor of others. 2. Real assets. Physical things that have intrinsic value regardless of what the currency is doing. Real estate, commodities, or gold. 3. Intellectual capital. Your skills, your health, and your ability to solve complex problems. If the stock market crashes, your real assets should hold steady. If the real estate market stalls, your intellectual income should keep the fuel flowing. A recession usually targets 1 or 2 of these pillars. If you are leaning entirely on one, you're a passenger in a crash. If you are balanced across all 3, you are the pilot. You can lose your job, but you still have your skills. You can see your stocks dip, but you still have your rental income. This isn't just investing. It's building an ecosystem that can survive any climate. Finally, we get to the only asset that is truly recession-proof. You. In a thriving economy, everyone looks like a genius. But when the world goes broke, active income, the money you get for just showing up, is the first thing to disappear. Companies fire the people who are costs and keep the people who are investments. This is why you must focus on intellectual or creative income. This is the process of creating a system once, a book, a digital product, a specialized skill, or a business protocol that produces value over and over again without your constant physical labor. Think of it like planting a tree. It takes a lot of work to dig the hole and water the seedling, but eventually the tree gives fruit whether you work that day or not. In a recession, the people who know how are the ones who get paid. Governments can devalue the dollar, markets can close, banks can freeze. No one can take away the software in your head. Your knowledge is the only capital that has a zero-cost maintenance fee and an infinite potential ROI. If you spent the good times only collecting money and not collecting skills, you are going to be very vulnerable when the music stops. But if you've been upgrading your internal software, you are the most valuable person in the room when the crisis hits. The map doesn't change just because the weather gets bad. A recession is simply a test of your architecture. If you've built your financial shield, if you've diversified your pillars, and if you've invested in your intellectual capital, you don't have to fear the red charts. You can look at a crisis and see it for what it actually is, a massive transfer of wealth. It is the time when assets go on sale for the people who had the discipline to prepare while everyone else was partying. Real wealth isn't about how much you have when things are easy. It's about how much freedom you have when things are hard. Stop being a passenger. Stop waiting for the news to tell you if it's okay to be successful. Build the shield, master the skills, and become the architect of your own life. I'm Harrison. Stay on the map. Let's get to work.